No, this was the worst series of the year. Oh my gosh. The Cardinals just went scoreless for 28 innings against the Pittsburgh Pirates, dropping all 3 games in just his hilariously bad fashion. Andrew and I are here, as always, to discuss what does this horrific series for the St. Louis Cardinals mean as they approach the end of the first half and a critical series at Wrigley Field against the Chicago Cubs this weekend. Oh boy, I'm sure you guys have a lot of feelings about this on this episode of Dealing the Cards. Hey, welcome back into Dealing the Cards. I'm Josh, joined by Andrew. If you missed our episode earlier this week, Bernie Miklasz was on. That was a fun conversation. Coming off a series sweep over the Cleveland Guardians, we had 3 epic wins over the weekend. And not gonna lie, this is probably the Jekyll and Hyde exact opposite version of what that series was, right? Cardinals get blanked in 3 9-inning contests against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 27 innings of scoreless baseball. Not without their chances, though. It's not like they didn't put runners in scoring position. I think they went 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position the first 3 innings of the game. They had someone on second with no outs in the first, second, and third innings of this game and did not score. Paul Skeens, they had chances against and did not score. Andrew Heaney that was the one game where they looked the most anemic, I think, at the plate. And couldn't do anything against him. You can argue that they maybe scored a run yesterday. I think Fermin was out, but that was a close play at the plate. You had some weird sends from Pop Warner. Pitching wasn't great this series, but I wasn't even that bad either. I saw people complain about it today. Obviously, you gave up 5 runs, not ideal. But obviously, you lost 1-0 yesterday. And I forget the score of Tuesday's game. That was Monday's game was 7-0. So yeah, that wasn't great either. It's been bad, Andrew. Oh yeah, because Monday was the Fedde start, so we can talk about that for sure. What's the vibes right now, man? What do you make of this? Is this? We didn't talk on Mondays or on Sunday, so I didn't get to hear your thoughts after the Guardian series. But does this anemic of a performance against the Pirates do anything for you, or is it kind of reveal some things you already knew, but not necessarily change your opinion? Where are you at with this Cardinal team?
Yeah, it's not good. Getting swept by a team as bad as the Pirates, although they have won 6 games in a row, they just swept the Mets. We're also not doing too good for themselves. But you never want to see a performance like you did this week. The first game I can kind of write off. I don't think Erick Fedde. I think Erick Fedde is just showing us what he is. I'm not surprised that he's pitching this way, to be honest. But then yesterday against Paul Skeens, you missed. Seems like every inning you're missing a critical chance to score runs against, a guy who didn't have it didn't look like Paul Skeens was dominating like he normally does. But he manages to get through 5 scoreless innings, and the Cardinals have chances against the bullpen, and they just can't do anything with it. And there was a terrible send with Contreras, which honestly might have gone differently if they had just pinch run Hampson for Contreras after he was hit by the pitch.
That was weird.
So I'm not sure what happened there. And then, the ending with Fermin and just poorly timed at bats and poorly just a bad performance by the offense. And, today's game, kind of similar, except Keller kind of locked in after the 3rd inning. Didn't really allow many base runners after that. And by that time, Sonny Gray kind of it's just not Sonny Gray pitched well today, I think. The first run that scored was off a 71 mile an hour double down the line. And then the second run that scored was a similar batted ball outcome, which you can't really control for. Sometimes these things will happen. I'm not too upset about that, but the offense definitely needed to get it together. But honestly, I don't really know what to make of this because the first game you're facing a lefty. We know the Cardinals have issues against lefties, and I believe Arenado didn't play that game. Or no, Nootbaar didn't play that game. He was dealing with some stuff. Ivan's out. Obviously, he'll be out for a little bit longer. And then you had Contreras and Arenado out for the second 2 games of the series for the most part. And those are 2 guys that you really need to rely on to fuel your offense instead of giving at bats to Fermin, who was DHing yesterday for some reason, even though he's been pretty good. He hasn't really been the issue. But that's not a guy you want to see in your lineup every day. And then you have it just shortens your lineup, right? You have Gorman batting cleanup, which is fine sometimes, but on days where he's cold, like today, it's not really ideal. And it's a little bit like just I don't know what to say about the series because I don't think it reveals like, oh, the Cardinals are suddenly terrible. Like that might have been my inclination if this was a couple weeks ago, but they've shown the ability to bounce back after playing really bad after many times this season. So I'm not really going to write them off completely yet because I think they still hold a playoff spot today. And, they just swept Cleveland, who is a team that I think is better than the Pirates. And then it's just frustrating. Erick Fedde, we can talk about his, honestly, job security because I don't think he has any trade value.
Yeah, no.
But and I think he's more of a DFA candidate than Michaelis is at this point. I would rather see Michaelis pitch.
What a revelation! Let's get to the Fedde stuff in a minute because I think most of the attention's on the series overall and the offense, and we can get to the Fedde stuff because
you're missing three of your best right-handed bats.
Yeah. So I feel like it's fair. Like, let's start on the front end. There is no excuse for not scoring a run in 28 straight innings. So neither of us are making an excuse for the offense. It was here are some we say. I think you're agreeing, Andrew. It was a horrendous performance. It was the worst series of the year. This was terrible, like awful. And no matter what we say next, doesn't excuse any of it. But I think it does bring I think it brings some context, and it matters more for what's coming ahead than what it does for what they just did. I think that's a fair thing to say, but like they are today in this lineup specifically, they did not have Ivan Herrera, their best hitter and best right-handed hitter. They did not have Willson Contreras, their second best right-handed hitter, arguably top 3-4 hitter, depends where you put Donovan, all of them. They have a hurt Nootbaar in the lineup. They did not have Nolan Arenado. So, and they don't have Jordan Walker. And Jordan Walker's been terrible this year. Like technically, their three best right-handed bats, and technically their four best right-handed bats were not available today. You have Donovan, who's been cold lately. You have Nootbaar, who is hurt. None of this is defenses for this offense, but it is a reality for that right now. They're also coming off of, again, we talked about how this month of June going into July was a horrific stretch in terms of they were just going to have to play game after game after game, and they're at the very bitter end of it. They're about to hit the All-Star break. Again, no one wants to hear excuses, and most fans don't want to hear excuses about playing the game, and you're playing a game, like everyone wants to go to work. I get it, but like this is a physically taxing game, and they're supposed to perform at like elite, pinnacle, highest of levels against other what do you call it? The other best in the world, right? So like their physical performance and how they're feeling that day matters a little bit more than most of ours does when we go to work. I'm just going to put that out there. With all that being said, it's inexcusable what just happened this series, but it doesn't change for me that I still think it's a good team. Andrew, going into the series, the Cardinals were 9 games above 500. That is their best start since what season do you think? Or how many years? How many years do you think it's been since they've had that good of a start to a season?
How many games?
They're 9 games above 500 going into the series. How many years do you think it's been since they've been 9 games above 500 through the 85 game mark?
I don't want to say 2015, but I feel like it's 2015.
17 years.
Oh.
It had been 17 years since because the Cardinals, if you like go back and look, they've actually not been a very good first half team. It's kind of weird, but like every year over year, they kind of like, not that they're bad, but some years they are, but overall they don't really perform all that great in the first halves of seasons. 9 games above 500 through the 85 game mark is their best start in 17 years. So am I trying to tell you this is the best Cardinals team in 17 years? No way. But I'm also not going to call this team bad. I'm not going to do it when you just got swept and you're still 6 games above 500. Could they be, are they potentially overachieving? Sure. Could they be on the downfall? Sure. And if you feel that way, I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. You might you could project that, But I've seen way too much in this team so far this year, and it feels like every time we have one of these discussions where it's like, all right, maybe this is it, they end up coming back and being fine. And so until I get us, like we've talked about this during that June stretch where it was really bad for a moment. Like I want to see a longer stretch of bad baseball before I'm ready to call this team a bad team. But there are so many cracks we can point to right now, right, Andrew? Like you can, like the Erick Fedde side of things, like man, like he's terrible, and like getting Michael McGreevy in there, I think would be an upgrade, but I don't think it'd be huge. Miles Michaelis, again, we'll see. I mean, he got roughed up pretty hard against the Guardians, and I mean, I like this. I honestly feel better about him on the mound than Erick Fedde right now, but I don't feel great. Sonny Gray's kind of Jekyll and Hyde, where he could be incredible one day and not so great the next day. Matthew Liberatore's been pretty good. Palante's been better lately. The bullpen, mostly better since the terrible start to the year, but, you know, I don't feel great about it a lot of the time. And then this lineup, right? It's like feast or famine. It feels like they score 10 runs. I'm not going to do the Sandy thing. Sorry, Sandy, if you're watching, but where he's like, oh, like this team gets shut out more than anyone else. And it's like, it's not true. Like, honestly, it's just not true.
It might be at this point.
Well, maybe, but going into the series, I need to pull up the numbers real quick. Again, it could be influenced a little bit differently, but going into the series, the Cardinals had been shut out 5 times, which I don't know where that ranked, but it wasn't that many times, and they shut out their opponents 10 times. And the only team in all baseball going into the series who had shut out more teams was the Padres at 13. The Cardinals were tied for the most sweeps in all of baseball. Like there's anyways, I don't fully subscribe to the idea that the Cardinals are only really, really good one day and only really, really bad the next day. Like I
think of all the teams that like are within 5 games of 500, they've probably been swept most times too. I don't know. I'm just making that
been
up.
Swept.
But I think they've been swept a lot.
3 or 4 times maybe, because they
got
swept
by Boston. They got swept by the Blue Jays. I think they got swept another time in between that, and then they just got swept again.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 times. It's not crazy. And also, like, okay, we just talked about how, I mean, Bernie and I were just talking about it on Sunday's episode. Like, the Mets have lost 11 to 12. I don't know what they're at right now, but they lost 11 to 12. The Phillies lost like 11 of 12 at one point. The Yankees had a really terrible stretch in there. Boston's had terrible stretches. Like, every team in baseball has terrible stretches. So I don't like when people are like, oh, well, if you're a World Series team, you don't have this bad of performances. Here's another reason I want to say that too. And again, I'm saying all this totally realizing like this is the episode of all episodes. No one wants to hear it. And so, Andrew, I think we could both raise our hand right now. Audio listeners, I'm raising my hand right now and saying I do not believe this team is a World Series contender. And if they even made the playoffs, I don't think they'd win a series. I don't think they're that good. But I don't think they're not a contender because of a series like this. So, again, context matters, but according to the Cardinals PR team, then the first time they've been shut out in 3 straight series since 2022, or sorry, 3 straight games. Yeah, that team made the playoffs and was good. And that was in 2022. That was 3 straight games. So it was once by Cincinnati, twice by San Diego. Last time they got shut out in an entire series was a 3-game series in 2015 when they won over 100 games.
That was also a pretty good year.
So, like, I'm just saying, like, good teams can have this big of a clunker sometimes. Again, I don't even know if I'd say.
Also, the 2015 one was after they'd already clinched the division, though, and well.
Yeah, so I know I'm not trying to convince. My point here is not to convince you this is a 100-win team or that the 2022 Cardinals. I just don't think this is the 2023 Cardinals. I just don't. I think it's a little bit better than last year, which I'm surprised by. I thought it'd be about the same. But it could change, right? Like, because if Contreras, like if this lineup is this depleted right now, and they lose Newbar, they lose Donovan, or they lose Wynn, or Jordan Walker doesn't bounce back, or Contreras, like, I mean, he seems fine for now, but what if they just come, like, I don't know, what if he has like some kind of ligament thing going on, or Arenado gets hurt? Like, there's ways this team falls apart, and I'm totally up for that. I just don't think what we saw from this Pittsburgh series guarantees that that's what's happening. So that's where I just want to go on this thing, because I get it, like. Well, yeah, the 2015 Cardinals offense wasn't good, but they were a really good team. And I would not play revisionist history here and act like when we were in 2015, everyone's like, oh, this team's a fraud, because no one thought that. And the 2022 team was a fun team to watch. And I get it that they were already going to make the playoffs at that point. I'm just saying, yes, there are reasons to be concerned. The reason I'm giving all these other perspectives right now is that that's not what the chat's saying, right? That's not what Twitter's saying right now. Twitter is saying, the world's on fire. The Cardinals are dead. Like they've never been good. And so I'm trying to provide the grounded perspective of what I've kind of held all year is I need to see a lot more of a sample size because it's baseball, 162 games. And how many times have we hopped on here after 3 games and called this team been like, wow, are they actually way better than they thought we were because they swept someone? Or we could jump on here like, oh, is this like a bottom 6 team in all baseball because they just got swept? And then guess what? They're actually probably somewhere in the middle. And that's where I still feel.
I mean, I don't know. This is the worst series of the year so far, but this is probably the best I've felt after about the team after one of these kinds of episodes where I have to put a sad player in the thumbnail and say, "Are we cooked?" on the title or something, just so people will click on it. Anyway, sorry. I don't know. Honestly, I'm less concerned about the offense going into this series against the Cubs than I am with the pitching because you have Miles Mikolas and Erick Fedde lined up to start against the Cubs at Wrigley, which is a hitter-friendly park. I don't know who the Cubs are going to be starting. I think you're going to avoid Imanaga. You might avoid Matthew Boyd, but either way, actually, I don't think you're going to avoid Matthew. No, I don't know. Maybe you will. I'm not sure. But, the Cubs offense is one of the best in all of baseball. I know PCA has had a bit of a slow stretch, but you still have Tucker and Suzuki and guys that can really mash the ball. And, Erick Fedde, I'm sorry, but you said this the other day on Twitter that you're not ready to say that he's a terrible pitcher. I think I'm ready to say that he's a terrible pitcher.
Let's do it on the other side of our ad reads.
Okay.
Little teaser right there. Andrew's going to give why you think he's a terrible pitcher. I might agree with you actually, but so always we're presented by 314 Sports Cards Collectibles. They're awesome. Seriously, please go check them out if you haven't already. They're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. Buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the new selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. I've gotten to check them out a few times. Andrew, what's it like shopping there? What's your experience been like?
Oh, yeah, it's super fun. Always have a lot of cool singles that you can go in and look. And if you want to rip some packs, they're fairly priced. And, if you like gambling, that's, I don't know if it's always the smartest decision, but it's a lot of fun to rip packs.
That's not, you're not selling it up right
I'm just kidding. It's
but seriously, it's fun because I'll follow them on Instagram and sometimes people rip packs and they'll pull an insanely valuable card and they'll be like, look at this. I just pulled a 1-of-1, whatever. And so I know you've made some trades in there too, where you're getting some Ohtani cards, trading away Ivan Herrera cards, not to call you out, but
anyway, I make poor decisions with baseball cards, but that's okay.
So it's really fun. And a lot of you already shop there. We've gotten messages from you or pictures of what you pull. We love getting those. So send those to us on Twitter. Let us know if you've gone in there and make sure you let them know we sent you if you end up making it into 3-on-4. They're awesome to work with and they love seeing you all. And we also proudly partnered with Underdog Sports. They're our favorite place to play fantasy games. You got to check out Pick'em. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. And so we put out some picks this weekend. You can go for example, if Sonny Gray set at 5.5, you could say he's going to have more strikeouts or less strikeouts than that. Maybe the Cardinals offense right now, you need to pick which bat is going to go hitless and go more or less hits and go less hits with the 1. Alec Burleson seems to be a fun one to do, or Erick Fedde when he starts next. We'll go to Andrew that. You can go higher on the walks or over on the walks because that seems to work every time. If that sounds like fun, use our promo code cards on the screen right now. And you can claim your first free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. And make sure you check out our Twitter, X, and sometimes Instagram for different picks we have on there. So, Andrew, give the case for anti-Fedde because I'm here for it.
Yeah, the Erick Fedde strikeouts were set at 3.5 on Underdog the other day. I went lower, and that was, I believe, I don't even know if he got a single one. Let's double check on that. But yeah, Erick Fedde, I think this was, as of his most recent start, I think has the lowest strikeout to walk ratio in all of baseball. xERA is, let's pull it up. I think it's 5.4. I was just looking at this. Sorry.
No, you're good. I should have pulled it up at the same time.
Yeah, so it's a 5.4 xERA, 7th percentile, 293 x batting average, That's 6th percentile.
Can I tell you something real quick? I have a tab for Cardinals pitching. I refresh every time we get on here.
Yeah.
And it's throwing me off every time because the top 2 players on my pitching tab now are Alec Burleson and Garrett Hampson with 0 ERA. So I think I'm on the hitting tab every time I click it now.
Well, maybe that's telling you who should be in the rotation.
Would you have more confidence in Alec Burleson or Garrett Hampson? In Garrett, like one of those two, or Erick Fedde right now?
Garrett Hampson. He hasn't thrown a ball yet this season, and he's on track to throw 27 outs on 27 pitches. You know,
I'd love to see it.
My guy right there.
Anyways,
the only piece of red on Erick Fedde's baseball savant page is his extension, which is 71st percentile, but that doesn't matter. That's like probably the least important thing on this entire page, right?
For him, maybe, but it is something that matters.
Yeah, but like it's a ground ball rate, hard hit rate, barrel rate, walk rate, strikeout rate, whiff rate. They all like are impacting the game. Your extension isn't really impacting.
Hey, but he had the lowest ERA of the Cardinals starters going into.
Maybe Erick Fedde will get an extension from the KBO next year. Anyway, it's just bad. The peripherals have been bad all year. Now they've gotten worse. He's just like. You can't get away with walking the house like he does and not striking anybody out the way that Erick Fedde does. And he doesn't limit hard contact. He's not like Palante that gets the ball on the ground a lot. His ground ball rate's only 40th percentile. So there's just not anything. There's almost not a single redeeming quality of Erick Fedde at this point in the season, right? Like earlier in the year, he was getting lucky. At least I thought he was getting lucky. He was severely outperforming his xERA. He's still outperforming his xERA by quite a little bit. But he's up to a 4.56 now. You're not getting anything back for this guy at the deadline. You guys laughed at me when I was not here, and I sent in my prediction for the new year on like on New Year's Day when you guys did that episode, and I wasn't here. I was like abroad, and you guys laughed at me. You're like, "There's no way Erick Fedde is going to be this bad." And
so, but make sure we said this bad. We didn't say he wasn't going to regress or be worthless.
I said he would regress.
No. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying when you post that clip, some people on Twitter responded to me. You're like, "Oh, I told you, like Erick Fedde was going to be. They should trade Fedde." I'm like, I agreed. They should have traded him. I just didn't think he'd be this bad. You were right.
You said
that's why I laughed because I was like,
idea that he wouldn't even get you a top 25 guy was like absurd to you guys, which is crazy. That like, I don't know what you can get for Erick Fedde at this point. Which contending team wants that, right? Like and no, Michaelis hasn't been worse. Michaelis xERA I think is a full point lower.
Yeah,
let's pull up the numbers right now. Erick Fedde's at a 5.4. Michaelis, let's load here, please. Michaelis is at a 4.68. And his walk rate is 84th percentile. That's a lot better than having your extension be the only red on the thing. You know what? Miles Michaelis isn't walking people. He's at least a more efficient pitcher, I guess, than Erick Fedde, because when he's giving up hits, he's not doing it in like 9 pitch at bats in a full count.
Yeah,
he's doing it early. And, you know, he's not been great, but he's not been as terrible as Erick Fedde.
You know what's kind of funny, though? So, like, I remember there's someone on Twitter who, when the Brewers made that trade with the White Sox to trade away Savali, and they got what's his face, the Andrew Vaughn back.
Yeah.
And I made this thing of like, and my bigger point is the Cardinals should have done this offseason, and they can trade Fedde anytime they want to, but they won't do it. And someone was responding to me and being like, that is such a dumb take. Why would the Cardinals do this? Why would you trade him for something like Andrew Vaughn? Even at that moment, I'm like, yeah, you'd want a little bit more. But like right now, I would take Andrew Vaughn for Erick Fedde if you could get it, but you're not going to even get that.
Right now, it takes salary relief for Erick Fedde. I don't care. Like
you would line the Mo pocket or the DeWitt pocketbooks.
Yeah. So just like, and then if you start McGreevy, get rid of Fedde. If someone gets hurt, that sucks, right? That's terrible. But
yeah,
you probably have like, I don't know. The deadline is in less than 3 weeks, and you just live with it. Erick Fedde for Anthony Rendon. That's like the one person I would not trade Erick Fedde for.
So also just to like emphasize how bad Erick Fedde is right now, which is why it's so mind blowing to me that like until his last 2 starts, there were people, especially in Cardinals media, but then even some fans who were like, you're like way overreacting how bad Erick Fedde is. Even before these starts, you look at his numbers, and what they tell you is this guy walks the world. he also doesn't strike anyone out. And when he throws the ball in the zone, people hit it really hard. So it's like they crush the ball. He puts guys on base and gives them free passes, and then he never strikes them out either. He doesn't do anything
There's
good.
an NPB guy who had a quote that was very similar to this.
Don't.
We're not going to talk anymore about it.
That was funny though.
But like,
would he be better than that guy in the KBO right now? I don't know.
But if you look,
the funny thing is, there's probably someone on Twitter right now who said, "Go get that guy from the KBO and replace Erick Fedde."
I mean,
which wouldn't be better.
No, it wouldn't be better. But like, if you go to Erick Fedde's baseball reference page and then black out 2024, it's terrible. He's never been good in his career aside from last year. So why am I supposed to believe that this is a good starter when all of the peripherals say that he's bad, all of the numbers say that he's bad, and he's only had one season where he was a productive major league player?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's not good. Also, here's something I just want to go back to this because I think this is where I do disagree with people. Is I don't, and Steve, always appreciate you hopping in the chat, man. We always appreciate your support. I still don't think there's a problem that they traded for him, and even that they gave up Edman to do it. I liked it at the time. I'm not going to go back on that. The problem was he was such a clear trade candidate this offseason. And like, honestly, like if you held Tommy Edman at the deadline, you didn't trade him. Let's play the scenario out. When did he come back? Do you remember? Was it early September he came back for the Dodgers?
Yeah, he was not great.
So he would have come back maybe for the Cardinals, but also by the early September they were kind of out of the race. So maybe they brought him back for a few weeks. But I could have seen
he had a 711 OPS in 37 games last year.
Okay, so that means he came back
around what his career norms are. Like it's not crazy. And this year he only has 100 OPS plus 720 OPS.
So when would have? Sorry, go ahead.
The only reason people are going crazy over Tommy Edman is because he like went nuclear in the postseason and got a massive extension. And that's the only reason why he got that extension to begin with.
Yeah, but he also could play a really good center field, really good shortstop, really good second baseman. He also hits left-handed pitching, which the Cardinals need. But
Walker Buehler only got that contract that he did because he was really, really good in the postseason. And look how terrible he's been this season. Like that's been a horrible contract.
I guess I disagree with you on the contract because I think he probably got a little bit more money because of the postseason run, but I think the Dodgers were going to pay him and pay him well when they traded for him. They've been targeting him for years because they.
I didn't say that like the Edman deal was terrible, but I'm saying when you base contracts off of like small sample size in the postseason, like the Red Sox did with Walker Buehler,
it's
not going to always go well.
Yeah. So, but going back to the Tommy Edman side of things, like so, let's play this out. The Cardinals hold on to Tommy Edman. There's a world where I don't think he plays at all in 2024 because by the time he was ready to come back, we're kind of starting to be out of it. So they might not have rushed him. They might not have wanted him back and just be like, hey, just make sure the wrist is fine. If he did come back, to your point, he would have had a low 700s OPS. He would not have made the postseason. He would not have done, he would not, he was not bringing the Cardinals to the postseason. He wasn't going to make that much of a difference. And he wouldn't have had this crazy NLCS run. So here's what happens. We come into 2025 and two things happen. Either he is one of the guys that they trade away to clear salary relief because that's what they were trying to do. And I still don't understand why they didn't with Fedde, but I think they probably would have done with Edman because at least on the pitching side, they could convince themselves they needed the depth. On the position player side, they probably would have been like, hey, we've got Wynn, we've got Scott, we've got Walker, we've got Donovan, we've got Newbar, we've got Gorman, which is the same thing they were thinking through when they traded him at the deadline. So, but if you have Tommy Edman, who all his 2024 was like a okay September, he wasn't going to, honestly, whatever he could have gotten you in the offseason probably is what Erick Fedde could have gotten you in the offseason. I don't know, maybe a little more, maybe a little less.
And so you got a grand slam from Tommy Pham. That's
true. You did get that. So my point is like people saying, oh, it's because like they made a huge mistake trading Tommy Edman. I don't think you get anything more than that than what you got getting Erick Fedde at the deadline. I don't think the offseason you get anything more from either. Sure, you could have had him this year and he would have been actually helpful. But like going into the year, we already talked about how much the roster didn't make sense in terms of there's too many guys who need playing time. Where was Edman going to play? Because he wasn't going to be a guy you could only play against left-handed pitching, right? So Scott doesn't make the roster probably at that point, and Edman's your center fielder, which would have been fine. But I'm just saying, like, these are the scenarios we're talking through here. And the Cardinals were never keeping Tommy Edman, nor should they have. I love Tommy Edman, but you have Donovan, you have Wynn, you have Scott, you have Weatherholt coming, you have Gorman. Like, you didn't need him. The Dodgers could afford to pay him that. The Cardinals couldn't afford that with all the other needs.
It's also not a great contract, I don't think, in my opinion. I know there's significant deferrals that makes it less, but I don't know.
I think it's fine when you can run a payroll that high. You can,
but like for the Cardinals, that's not a contract that makes any sense.
For sure. So my whole point is going back, like, the problem was not trading for Erick Fedde. The problem was not trading away Erick Fedde in the offseason or during spring training when people wanted him. Because this is the other thing is, like, people like started to come at me when Erick Fedde was bad. And like, I remember someone on 101 ESPN was like, "Oh, coming out of the woodworks, people saying they should have traded Fedde." I'm like, "No, I've been saying it for months." And then the other side of it was like, there's some people saying like, "Well, like, we don't even know if they would have gotten offers or anyone really wanted him." All offseason, we heard reports about it. Then in spring training, Derek Gould got quotes from Erick Fedde himself saying, "I know that teams are wanting me because of my low contract." And he kind of thought he'd be getting traded. And teams were still interested in him during spring training. Derek Gould was saying that there were teams monitoring the Erick Fedde situation, thinking the Cardinals could deal him. They had every opportunity. They didn't do it. That's the mistake. And now he's not worth anything.
Now it's done. There's
done.
No world where the Cardinals are getting anything back for Erick Fedde.
Unless he turns it around in the next 4 starts before the deadline, 5 starts.
But that's not going to,
I don't think so either. Yeah.
That's not realistic. And even, if it did, even if he threw 4 straight scoreless outings, I think his value still would have been higher in the offseason. And I don't know. What I also don't get is that, you look at people saying, yeah, the Cardinals needed depth, and they went all of spring without a pitching injury. They've gone all this season without a pitching injury, which is great. But think about the starters that they have in the rotation, right? Miles Michaelis, Andre Palante, Erick Fedde, and Michael McGreevy don't throw that hard.
Palante does. Palante can hit, it sits in mid-90s, hits 97. But yeah, he's not a swing and miss guy.
They're not the type of pitcher that I feel like generally undergoes those kinds of major surgeries and stuff.
It's a great point by you.
And they also lost 6 guys in AAA that could have given them depth. So they did have pitching injuries. It was just to their depth, not to their major league stars, which is what I would prefer. But if it had been the other way around, they would have had people to fill the rotation. You have McGreevy, you would have had Robertson and Thompson. And
if Robertson and Thompson are in the rotation right now, I mean, it's probably worse than what it is right now.
You're not contending right now with that, but that was never the goal of the season, right? And Erick Fedde is also not helping you.
But also the other side of it too is to your point, you're right. They have a profiles of starters, but they usually don't get injured as much. Now you can't. Going into the season with no depth would have been dumb. And the triple, and there was they did. Yeah, you're just true because you did have one of Liberatore or Steven Matz was going to be depth, and Michael McGreevy, or sorry, one of those 2 of those 3 guys were going to be depth. And then don't remind me that Erick Fedde gets to go on Sunday Night Baseball. Woof. Remember last time Cardinals were on Sunday Night Baseball and Miles Michaelis is on the mound? Oh boy. But yeah, to your point, they did have a bunch of guys that in theory shouldn't be getting hurt. And it's last year, they really didn't have many injuries except for that Lance Lynn toward the end of the year. And even if they were afraid of it, I talked about this with B-Shape when we did the
Kyle Gibson has had a terrible season, but you're telling me that he wouldn't have come back.
He would have. He would have. Yeah, I know he would have come back. And also, if he had a full spring training because you signed him in January, maybe it goes better. And he has a really good defense behind him, and he's somewhere he's comfortable. Or Jose Quintana, who signed during spring training for less money than Erick Fedde, or Lance Lynn, who never signed because no one signed him, or and those are just the 3 easy names who are former Cardinals. But there's other names out there they could have brought in. That's the part that doesn't make sense to me. Is even if people are well, they shouldn't have just put McGreevy in the rotation because they need depth. It's okay, they could have signed cheaper depth. So dumb.
People are saying the Cardinals have never been good this year, and that's not fair. But honestly, if you look at Erick Fedde's resume, has he ever really been good?
I think the part that's tricky with him is that KBO stint and changing his arsenal to extents. I think
how weak the KBO is. Do you know how weak hitters are in the KBO?
But no, the point isn't how much success he had in the KBO. My point is that he went in this odyssey to change himself as a pitcher. And he came back not the same guy, not because he performed in the KBO, but he did. The point is because he changed who he was. So it wasn't like he just was doing the exact same stuff and randomly was getting better results. That's something I get skeptical of. But if a guy changes his profile and he's throwing different pitches and finding different success with them, I'm willing to say, not totally throw out the old stuff, but also say, hey, well, he also was a different guy back then.
The walk issue was also there before.
It's true. That's super concerning that it's back.
That, like, I just think we're getting Erick Fedde pre-KBO, and like,
yeah. And again, if you told me, hey, you want this pitcher who who walks everyone, who doesn't strike out anyone, and allows hard contact whenever they do hit the ball, I would be like, that pitcher probably shouldn't be in Major League Baseball.
You should pull up Dakota Hudson's Baseball Savant page from 2023 and compare them side by side. It's slightly worse for Dakota Hudson, but it's not that much worse where like it's really concerning.
I think you should do that for a tweet or something. I feel like that would work well.
It's so bad.
So anyways, he did still have an elite ground ball rate back then, but that's the only thing he had going for him. So anyways,
Erick Fedde doesn't even have an elite ground ball rate. He's in the air more than he is, or maybe not, but like it's terrible.
Yeah, it's all around bad. So yeah, I mean, so you got this Cubs series this weekend. Not feeling good about that, that's for sure. What are the matchups again? You've got Michaelis, Fedde, and
Liberatore.
Liberatore gets the what game?
The middle game.
Okay. And do the Cubs have their starters announced yet?
No, but I think you'll get Tyone and Boyd.
Okay.
And I don't know who the third one is, but
oh man,
not Imanaga, because Imanaga is starting tonight.
I mean, really, the Cardinals need to they've got the Braves after that and the Nationals again. So they do have a couple more series, but they really, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they get swept this weekend. They really need to take one. I think they have to, and they got to find a way to score runs. And then the week after, they really got to rebound against the Nationals and Braves so they can limp into the All-Star break. They're 6 games above 500 right now. I think if they're 4 games above 500 at the All-Star break, you take it. Obviously, you want them to be better than that. Again, we are just coming off of potentially their best series of the year this weekend. So I don't want to put all the eggs in the Pirates basket of how bad things are looking. But the thing that concerns me is how many guys are ailing or actually hurt right now. And just they seem to be running out of fumes. And they do get an off day tomorrow, which is good. And some of those guys are going to get consecutive off days in Arenado and Contreras. But yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, we're in the Cardinals will face Colin Ray on Friday on Apple TV. Yay, Apple TV.
Yay, Apple TV. Hey, the Cardinals do
well. Michaelis might throw a complete game shutout. You never know. Erick Fedde did it. And
you know, it's crazy. As things currently stand, even with how bad the series was, the Cardinals are a half game out of the wild card. And if the Padres lose tonight, they're tied for the wild card. So
cool.
Oh, wait, no. Wait.
Doubleheader. Because the Padres won the first game of the doubleheader.
Yeah, sorry. The Padres will be a game and a half.
No, they're a half game back at the Padres. I checked. They were a half game ahead this morning, and if the Padres split the doubleheader, which they probably will, that's how doubleheaders work. But
most of the time,
unless you're the Cardinals.
Regardless, it's like for as doom and gloom as people are right now, they're a half game back to the wild card, and at worst will be a game and a half back. So
one game,
or 1 game back. Yes, sorry, you're right. I keep saying game and a half, but so. Oh boy, not great in Cardinal land. Hey, there's still plus 32 run differential in the year, which is better than the Padres. 2 runs less than the Mets, which also, you know what? I last year said that didn't matter, but for all of you who did tell me it mattered when they were negative so much, I'm gonna say it.
It did matter.
I know it ended up mattering to an extent, but anyways, sorry. I feel like on episodes like this, I get really kind of but it's because
you should just log off Twitter on these days. That's just
I know. And it's because I just wish. And even I'm talking about we don't there's people that when you will be feeble, if you say feeble win, I know you don't actually think win's bad. So I'm just laughing with you. But when people are oh, I'm frustrated and it's this is the worst team ever, but clearly it's tongue in cheek. It's okay. It's just another thing when
it's Fedde, I mean it, guys. I don't want to be about Erick Fedde, but genuinely, it's not his fault. Like this was happening. I didn't think it would be this bad, but actually I did.
I just get angsty about like when we jump into these things and people are like, well, did you not watch watch the last 3 games? And it's like, I get it. Like how many years do we have to watch baseball before we stop putting so much stock in 3 games of a year, or even just a week of a year, or 2 weeks of a year, because it can change.
Do you know why hitters go to Japan instead of Korea?
Oh no.
It's because the pitching in Korea is worse than the pitching in Japan. Japan has a higher level of play. Do you know who's like tearing it up in Japan right now?
Who?
Trey Cabbage, Luke Voigt, like Franmil Reyes.
Hey,
they're not good hitters, and the KBO is a step down from that. So that should tell you everything you need to know about Erick Fedde.
I do think this is where things will be like from Kareem. This trade line isn't going to be interesting for me. I think that's the tough part about where they're at right now.
I don't think it's going to be interesting for any of us. I don't think they're going to do anything.
Oh, that's what I mean, is that I think because of this place they're in right now, like they're probably like Fedde has no value. They're probably not trading Steven Matz. They're probably not trading Ryan Helsley. And I doubt a Nolan Arenado trade happens. It like maybe they add a Chris Stratton level reliever. Maybe, like, I don't know. So it's gonna be
If you could tell me right now, you could get a Sean Armstrong back for Erick Fedde, and you wouldn't have to eat any of the salary, I would do it immediately.
Sean Armstrong wasn't even bad for the Cardinals.
No, he wasn't. He was fine.
Oh,
or like a Michael Hellman, who we got for cash considerations. For Erick Fedde, I'll do it. Sure. Right-handed bat.
All right. I guess that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna result to that at this point.
I do want Ozuna. I like Ozuna. I'll take it back. Just don't give up 2 pitching prospects for him.
Oh boy. They should give up I don't know. I'm trying to think of who the next Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen would be.
They would give up like
Ishan Henderson, and
they would give up like Pete Hansen for him, and then he would turn into like a
cycle. But like Sandy Alcantara and Zach Gallen weren't bad prospects. They just weren't the Alex Reyes and Jack Flaherty at that moment. At least publicly and like on lists. But oh boy. Fedde for Naylor. Why would you need a left-handed bat though? They need right-handed bats so bad. So, and that's the other thing is like I don't see them necessarily blocking Jordan Walker and Thomas Ajayci down. Thomas Ajayci hasn't been good, but like the fact that they're trying to get him place in outfield right now tells me they'd be interested in seeing him in the outfield potentially. And
can I ask a question about Pajas real quick before we go?
Yeah, go for it.
Can Pajas not call games from the bench?
I said we should figure out how Frankenstein happened or some kind of figure out a way to merge Pozo and Pajas into the same person. I do think there's probably something to be said about, because I actually thought this was a really good point from Bernie that he made recently. It wasn't when we were talking, that we can't be the fan base that tells every other fan base that they don't understand how good Yadier Molina was and that it goes beyond the stats and it's something you can't measure and you just see it and is evidenced by the way people talk about him.
Well, that's why I want Yadier Molina as my bench coach calling the games from the bench. Like I would prefer that over Pajas.
But I think all of them would agree that there's something different about a guy behind the plate being able to feel it out than just from the dugout. Again, I told this to Bernie too, like I'm not Pedro Pajas is your catcher long term. But I do think the game calling at this point has shown enough to me that I think I'm fine rolling with him in 2025 and still giving those opportunities to Yvonne. But I don't think the Pozo thing is necessarily all that. Even as someone who wanted to see more Pozo before, and I'm not saying like that's the other thing. It's like I'm not saying Pajas and Molina chat. Like I'm not, but I think it's fair to say like the way they talk about his game calling right now is it's elite, and there's a genuine like the Cardinals going into the series. I don't know what it is now, but the Cardinals had a 3.5 ERA with Pajas behind the plate, which would have been 7th in all of baseball. When Herrera's behind the plate, the ERA was over 5, and when Pozo's behind the plate, it's a mid-4. So like that's like that. There's like that's the quantitative thing you can say to it, but then it's like
how many times has Ivan Herrera caught Erick Fedde this year? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways to do it, right? You could have a guy who calls games from the bench. I don't think I don't think we should just totally disregard the fact that being able to do that from behind the plate and feel it out in real time matters. But
yeah, I just
again,
feel like with all the pitch comm and all the technology, you should just be able to do it. I don't like. Does it matter if Paez, like where Paez is sitting, like it's just the position of the guy's glove, and the guy behind the plate will have the pitch comm too.
yeah,
No big deal.
I'm not saying you're wrong on that. I'm just saying I'm fine if people don't want to see Paez. I'm fine with seeing Paez now, which is
I don't think he's D tier anymore, but people are coming at us for posts. I posted it so late. I should with all that's
It's
on
okay.
me. I had a busy weekend, but
It's okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's D tier anymore, but I'm certainly not B tier.
Yeah. Again, I'm not saying like I get it, and I'm seeing the chats right now, and I said this to Bernie, like catcher ERA is not an exact science, and I'm not trying to say all, but you pair that with every single pitcher, and the organization seems to think Paez is special at it, and the front office and the coaching staff. Again, I think the game calling matters, and I'm just fine seeing it behind the plate because of how I don't know where this pitching staff would be without someone who could do that.
It's true.
But I do think it's fair to say, like, can they figure out a way to get that value, whether it's Pedro Paez or someone else calling it from the dugout?
I also hear the argument sometimes that Pedro Paez is like starting out his career similar to Molina, where Molina was really bad in his first couple seasons offensively. Pedro Paez is 26.
True.
Do you know what Yadier Molina was hitting when he was 26?
Was that one of his close to MVP years?
He had a 293 average, 366 on base, 383 slugging, 749 OPS, and finished 23rd at MVP voting.
Yeah. See, but like that's the thing is when I say the Yachty stuff, because I for a long time was not even going to ever mention his name in the same breath, and I'm not mentioning the same breath as in he's close to him. I'm just saying like the kinds of things we've said about Yachty, we can't just like you can't say that and be like full belief on it in a guy like that, and then not give any credence to it for another guy because we don't like the bat.
I think it's important. I just think the bat is so bad that
I don't think it's bad enough that if that game calling actually is as good as it is, that it hurts the team. But what's hurting the team right now is the other bats aren't hitting. And when the other bats are hitting, we don't really talk about Pedro Paez, but we talk about Pedro Paez when the entire offense is bad.
Doesn't Joel Pozo like have a 163 WRC plus against left-handed pitching? He just was sitting on the bench against Heaney.
Woof.
I know it's a small sample size, but like,
yeah,
pretty sure he didn't start that game.
Anyways, fun times in St. Louis. So, hey, Andrew, we might have a very, very heated chat on Sunday. Hopefully, we have a fun chat. What if the Cardinals? I mean, it's not gonna happen. What if they swept the Cubs this weekend? That'd be so.
That'd be funny.
It would be funny. It would just be so this season. And then you'd have the chat be like, Cardinals are back. Whoa.
That's how it is.
I promise you, I'm saying it today. If the Cardinals get swept by the Cubs, I'll feel worse about it, and I will call it the cracks more, but I still won't be ready to say
I might be.
This seems bad.
So you'll be what, like,
but if they
division?
I mean, maybe, but that's not. But you're still in the wild card race.
Maybe not. I don't know. You could fall pretty far.
I don't know if you'd fall that far out. But if they sweep the Cubs, I'm also not going to come on here and act like this is now a better team than even.
They might be within half a game of the division at that point.
Yeah, and I'd still feel the same about the team. Is that I think they're a pretty good team, and they can contend all year. And depending on how the Cubs play, and if they add, they could compete for the division, and they certainly are in the wild card race. But it doesn't mean they'll make the playoffs. And honestly, today, if you ask me if they're going to make the playoffs, I'll say no. I would bet against it, but slight. Like it's like I'm probably like 60% they won't make it, 40% they will. But we'll see. So, anyways, appreciate the support as always. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Deal on the Cards. We'll have Sandy back in the near-ish future. I don't know if is he back Sunday
for the draft.
Oh, for the draft. Okay, so we'll have him for the draft.
Week.
Yeah. So it'd be fun. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Audio, big shout out to you guys. Audio has been booming lately, and that's super fun. And so we're trying to be more intentional on the pod about making sure we're doing it on YouTube and video live streaming. And so I can get carried away about like just seeing things and not calling it out for you guys to know. So we're trying to do a better job about that, but appreciate the support all across the board on Deal on the Cards. And remember, you can follow us on social media, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, or if you're on listening to us on audio. Subscribe to the podcast, rate the show, all that kind of stuff. It helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it. We'll be back on Sunday for however the Cubs series goes.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.